They said he would never wake up. The hours turned into days, then into weeks. While they laughed nearby, divided his assets, and planned a new life without him, he listened. He didn't breathe on his own. Machines did it for him. He couldn't move, but he remembered every word. The betrayal of the woman he loved, his daughter's greed, the chilling game played with his life. All of it forged something new within him. He wasn't just alive, he had become a threat to those who thought they had already won. Surveillance cameras, hidden evidence, allies he could trust. He would orchestrate his return like a mission. No anger, no emotion, only calculation. And when he rose from that hospital bed, no one would be ready for what came next. Because no one expects revenge from the dead. But he wasn't dead. He was watching. And now, it's their turn. Greetings, my dear friend. I am very happy that you are watching my video, and I will be even happier if you subscribe to my channel. This will make me even happier. Let's get started. Marcus Hale let his fingers drift across the textured cover of the leather journal, savoring its solid presence in his life. It was one of the rare things that belonged to him alone. Golden morning light spilled in through the tall bay windows of his study, casting a warm glow over the mahogany shelves and antique furnishings. Over the 15 years of his marriage, this room had evolved into a sanctuary, a quiet pocket of space untouched by the world outside. At 45, Marcus had built a life most would envy. His private security firm, specializing in digital surveillance, was thriving. He lived in a stately colonial home nestled in the historic heart of Portsmouth, and for the longest time, he believed he had a steady, fulfilling family life. "You planning on joining the rest of the world sometime today?" The voice cut through his thoughts. Lena stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the light behind her. Her hair was pulled into a sleek, elegant updo, matching the polished image she maintained so carefully. Once a promising young attorney, she'd shifted her focus after their daughter Eva's birth, channeling her energy into mastering the social hierarchies of New England's elite. "Just finishing up notes on the Pendleton job," Marcus replied, closing the journal with a soft thud. "Everything okay?" she asked, her smile tight, not quite touching her eyes. "Eva's recitals tonight. You haven't forgotten, right?" "I'll be there." "6 on the dot," he said, the familiar sting of guilt flaring as she turned and left the room. Once alone again, he rotated toward his monitor and logged into the security interface. It had become a ritual, automatic, comforting. Years of working in surveillance had left him with habits he couldn't shake. Lately, though, something felt off. Lena's behavior had shifted. Her schedule had grown erratic. She'd vanish for hours under the excuse of errands, and whenever he entered a room, her whispered phone calls would abruptly end. His job had become all-consuming. His firm was deep in a high-stakes contract with Nextech Industries, tasked with repairing their internal network after several leaks. If they pulled it off, the contract could open doors nationwide. Damian Price, Marcus's longtime partner and friend, had taken over client communications, freeing Marcus to handle the more technical demands. Their partnership, tempered in the crucible of military service and later forged into a business from the ground up, was one of the few constants in Marcus's life. His phone buzzed. A message from Damian. "Nextech's CEO bumped up the meeting. Need you here in 30. As Marcus gathered his materials, his eyes fell on a framed photograph on the desk. The three of them, Lena, Ava, and him, smiling at Eva's 16th birthday party. She was 17 now, and lately she'd been pulling away. Marcus had chalked it up to teenage mood swings, but something deeper gnawed at him. He made a quiet vow. He'd reconnect with her, before it was too late. A flicker on the security screen caught his attention. Lena's car was back, odd since she had left less than half an hour ago. A second car, a dark sedan, slid into the driveway behind hers. A man stepped out and greeted Lena with an embrace far too familiar to be innocent. Marcus's stomach twisted. He stared, motionless, watching the footage play out before saving the clip and shutting the system down. There would be time to confront her, but not now. Nextech couldn't wait. He sent Lena a quick text to say he was heading out, grabbed his keys and walked toward the garage. He never saw the truck that ignored the red light and slammed into the side of his car at over 60 miles per hour. The first thing he felt was pain. Deep, dull, inescapable. His eyes wouldn't open. His mouth wouldn't form words. He was trapped inside himself. But he could hear. He picked up on faint sounds, the whir of machines, the soft patter of shoes across linoleum, voices murmuring in and out of clarity. Occasionally, sharp phrases pierced the haze. Traumatic brain injury. Induced coma. No guarantee of recovery. Time melted away. Minutes, hours, maybe weeks slipped through the cracks of consciousness. He wasn't always alone. Sometimes a hand would hold his, and Damien's familiar voice would provide business updates. Sometimes Eva came, her voice shaky with emotion, though he couldn't make out the words. Lena visited less and less, and when she did, she rarely addressed him directly. She spoke to others, assuming he couldn't hear. The doctors say there's barely any brain activity. He may never wake up. Her voice was closer than usual one day. "What happens with the company?" asked a man Marcus didn't recognize. It was the man from the security footage. "Damien's overseeing operations," Lena said evenly. "But if Marcus doesn't pull through, I inherit his shares. The house, too. It's in both our names. If he dies—" The man chuckled. "Good thing no one questions a doctor visiting a patient, confidentiality and all that." A doctor. The name surfaced like a jolt of electricity. Warren Teller, a neurosurgeon. Lena had introduced him at a dinner party just months ago. Now the puzzle pieces slid into place. This wasn't random, it was deliberate. A setup. Their voices drifted away, but the truth stuck with Marcus like a splinter in his mind. Days later, Eva came in with Lena and Teller. 6 weeks now, Teller noted. Every day that passes lowers the odds of recovery. "What about the life insurance?" Eva asked, her voice disturbingly calm. $3 million, Lena answered without hesitation. Plus the house, plus his equity in the firm. "Then it's time we start preparing," Teller said. So they began to plan, right there beside his hospital bed. Marcus heard Lena speaking on the phone to her sister, Vanessa by the sound of it. "After the crash, I let Warren move in. He stays here now. Marcus won't ever wake up. We'll liquidate his assets and divide the money." Ava's laugh followed, sharp, icy, and far more painful to Marcus than even the betrayal by his own wife. "What about the watch collection?" she added. "Those vintage pieces alone are worth a small fortune." Neither of them noticed the slight movement, the barely there twitch in Marcus's finger. It was imperceptible, but it happened. Marcus felt it. A fragile spark, a connection between mind and body that had been lost in the darkness of his coma. Slowly, with immense effort, he moved the finger again, then once more. A signal, a start. While his body remained paralyzed, his mind sharpened. He began to listen. Every careless word became part of a puzzle he was determined to solve. Dr. Teller had begun to manipulate the medical records, subtly changing details to make ending life support look justifiable. Lena had already begun to clear out his belongings, and Ava, his own daughter, was cataloging his valuables like she was preparing for an estate sale. None of them had a clue about the surveillance cameras Damien had installed in the room. After noticing inconsistencies in Marcus's medication logs, Damien had acted discreetly, streaming live video to a secure server managed by Hale Security. Every moment, every whisper was being documented. On the 53rd day, a new voice drifted into Marcus's awareness. It was Phoebe Weller, the night nurse who had faithfully cared for him. "Something's off with your medical records, Mr. Hale," she whispered, unaware he could hear. "Your dosages keep fluctuating, but Dr. Teller insists it's all normal. I've started logging everything myself." Marcus summoned every ounce of his willpower and focused on his hand. This time, Phoebe saw it. "Mr. Hale, if you can hear me, move your finger again." With a supreme effort, he did. She gasped. "Oh my God, you're responsive. I'm notifying the on-call physician, not Dr. Teller." For the first time since the crash, Marcus felt something other than pain and betrayal. He felt hope. When his eyes finally opened, the hospital's fluorescent lighting was harsh. Phoebe's clipboard clattered to the ground. "This can't be happening," she said, stunned. "Dr. Teller said there was no chance." She stopped herself, regained composure. "I'm calling Dr. Montgomery." The next few hours were a blur of assessments and testing. Dr. Alastair Montgomery, the head of neurology, took personal control of Marcus's care. "Your recovery is exceptional," Montgomery said, scanning a thick stack of documents. "But your file is riddled with irregularities. I've launched a full review." Still unable to speak, Marcus motioned for something to write with. Handed a tablet, he typed, "Check security footage, my company, contact Damian Price." Dr. Montgomery nodded. "He's been visiting frequently. I'll reach out to him now." Less than an hour later, Damian entered the room, and the facade of his usual stoic professionalism cracked as he saw Marcus awake. "You stubborn bastard," he said, gripping Marcus's hand tightly. "I knew you weren't gone." Once they were alone, Marcus typed another message. "Video from hospital room." Damian's expression darkened. "I've got it all," he said quietly. "When I noticed the meds weren't adding up, I installed hidden cameras. Lena, Teller, even Eva." He trailed off, unable to continue. "Lawyer," Marcus typed. "Sydney Blackwell. She's already building the case. All footage has been archived and authenticated." "No one knows you're awake," Damian added. "Only me, Montgomery, and his trusted team." Marcus nodded, his focus sharpening. On the tablet, he typed a series of instructions. "No visitors except Damian and approved staff. No public announcements. Send everything to Sydney." Damian read it, then looked up. "What's the plan?" Marcus typed slowly, deliberately. "Let them think I'm still unconscious." Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus's recovery accelerated. Through aggressive physical rehab and speech therapy, he clawed back his strength. Meanwhile, Lena, Teller, and Eva still believed he was deep in a coma, soon to be transferred to a long-term care facility. Sydney had arranged this facade meticulously to ensure they remained oblivious. The hospital's internal inquiry into Dr. Teller moved forward behind the scenes. Nurse Weller observations, combined with the surveillance evidence, exposed a pattern of deliberate drug manipulation. By the 23rd day of his recovery, Marcus was ready. Sydney had compiled a thorough portfolio: Teller's criminal negligence, Lena's backdoor financial schemes, and Eva's involvement. "We've got enough to file multiple charges," Sydney said during one of their private meetings. "There's footage of Teller discussing how to lower your meds so you wouldn't come back. Your wife's on tape detailing how they'll divide your estate. We could take this straight to the prosecutors." She paused. "But you said you wanted something different." Marcus, now speaking in short, raspy phrases, looked her square in the eyes. "Prison's not enough," he said. "They lose everything, just like they planned for me." Sydney gave him a measured look. Years of handling ruthless divorces had taught her the dangers of revenge. "Just don't let it consume you, Marcus," she said quietly. "Justice is one thing, but vengeance, that can rot you from the inside out." "This isn't revenge," Marcus said, his voice raspy from weeks without speaking. "It's about making things right." The day he was discharged, he watched the surveillance tapes one final time. The most damning clip captured Dr. Teller subtly adjusting his tie, while assuring Lena that cutting Marcus's meds would keep him sedated. In another video, Eva casually snapped photos of his beloved watch collection, chatting with her mother about which pieces to sell first. "Ready to go?" Damien asked, wheeling in a clean set of clothes. Marcus waved off the wheelchair and stood on his own. "They spent 2 months living in my shoes. Now it's time I take everything back. The life they stole." Damien had secured a hideout, a secluded cabin buried deep in the White Mountains, 3 hours from Portsmouth and invisible to the grid. For someone whose entire career had revolved around using tech to follow others, Marcus found it grimly ironic that he now had to erase himself. Off-grid solar, satellite internet tunneled through 7 proxies, and no links to your name or past business, Damien said as they arrived. "You're a ghost." Marcus took in the cabin's understated charm, laced with discreet but top-tier security features. "Perfect," he said. "How's Phase 1 holding up?" Damien opened his laptop and gestured to a series of financial transactions. The court order Sydney filed froze Lena's access to the joint accounts this morning. She tried to withdraw cash at 2:15, denied. Called the bank manager in a rage, insisting it had to be an error. As for Teller, the hospital board got the dossier yesterday. They've suspended him while they investigate. He doesn't know what hit him yet. Credentials were revoked about an hour ago. Marcus gave a sharp nod, his reaction contained but satisfied. "And Eva?" Damien hesitated. "You're sure you want to go through with this? She's still your daughter? The same daughter who laughed about selling my watches while I was expected to die?" Marcus's tone was steady, though his eyes darkened. "Show me." Damien opened another tab, Eva's university portal. Her Dartmouth acceptance is now under review. Admissions flagged it. Her financial aid is under reconsideration too. Good. What's the update on Nextech? Everything's sealed. I've been the face for communications, telling people you're recovering at a private retreat. Oddly enough, since the Nextech deal went public, the company's valuation jumped. Marcus absorbed the information, mentally connecting the dots in the chain reaction he had set in motion. Lena would soon realize she couldn't access a dime of their money. The life insurance policy she had been counting on, rewritten quietly months ago, back when Marcus first sensed betrayal. The new beneficiary? A trust managed solely by Damien. The home surveillance? Still active? Marcus asked. Damien nodded and pulled up the live feed. Familiar rooms filled the screen, though signs of Teller's presence were everywhere. His books on Marcus's desk, his suits in Marcus's closet. "He moved in 3 weeks after your accident," Damien added, though it was evident. "They've been playing house ever since." Marcus stared at the screen, unmoving, as Lena appeared in the kitchen mid-phone call, her face twisted in anger. "That's her realizing she's locked out of the money," Marcus said, quietly pleased. For the following 2 weeks, Marcus divided his days with unrelenting focus, part physical rehab, part strategic warfare. Mornings were brutal, rebuilding his strength, regaining mobility, undoing the damage of months in a hospital bed. Afternoons were spent combing through data with Damien and Sydney, calculating each move with surgical precision. Evenings, Marcus monitored the feeds, watching the lives of those who had betrayed him start to fracture under pressure. Dr. Teller was the first to falter. His suspension, combined with growing whispers of an internal review, pushed him to lash out. One evening, caught perfectly on camera, he confronted Lena. Their fight was vicious. He blamed her carelessness. She accused him of overconfidence. Neither realized they were being recorded. When Eva came home from a weekend away, she walked into chaos. Her aid package had vanished, and the tension between her mother and Teller had escalated into all-out hostility. Instead of uniting, they began to crumble. 17 days into Marcus's quiet campaign, an unexpected event occurred. In a panic, Lena tried to open the study's safe, only to find it empty. "You emptied it before the accident?" Damien asked, confused as they watched the footage. Marcus shook his head. There was over $60,000 in cash in there, plus documents tied to offshore accounts. They watched as Lena frantically dialed Teller. He came rushing home, visibly shaken, likely fresh from a tense conversation with his attorney. The cameras caught their argument in full. At one point, Teller grabbed her arm roughly, the moment captured with unnerving clarity. "They're turning on each other," Marcus said, his voice level but unflinching. Someone had already emptied the safe before he ever got to it. The mystery unraveled the next morning when surveillance footage provided the missing piece. Ava had slipped into the master bedroom, retrieved a duffel bag from a hidden compartment in the air duct, and exited the house with it. In an instant, Marcus pieced it together. She'd acted ahead of everyone else. She's playing her own game, he thought. This revelation forced him to reevaluate everything he thought he knew. He had braced himself for a united opposition. Instead, the alliance was crumbling, each player prioritizing their own survival over any shared cause. "Should we try to recover the bag?" Damien asked, voice low. Marcus hesitated, calculating, then slowly shook his head. "No. We wait. Watch her moves, but don't intervene." By the following day, the dynamics shifted again. Sidney Blackwell appeared at the cabin with a grave expression. "Lena just brought in Raymond Voss," she announced without preamble. The name hit Marcus like a punch. Voss had a reputation, a ruthless attorney notorious for his cutthroat divorce cases and a comfortable relationship with moral ambiguity. "He's already filed an emergency motion," Sidney continued, "accusing Damien of abducting you and staging a hostile takeover. He's asking the court to give Lena temporary conservatorship until you're deemed mentally sound." Marcus absorbed the news, recognizing that the stakes had just escalated. "They're grasping at straws now," he said. "There's more," Sidney added grimly. "Judge Hamilton agreed to hear the case. Word is he golfs with Teller's father. The hearing's set for next week." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Then it's time for phase 2. Damien looked uneasy. "You sure? You're still recovering." "I'm recovered enough," Marcus said firmly, rising with strength and control. "Call Patricia Banks at the Bureau. Tell her I'm ready to give a full statement about Teller's attempt on my life and the fraudulent medical practices he's been covering up." That evening, the front page of the Portsmouth Register exploded with the headline, "Miracle Recovery, Business Tycoon Awakens, Alleges Murder Plot Below It." A photo of Marcus, thinner but unmistakably alert, showed him walking out of the Boston FBI office. At the safe house, he watched a live feed as Lena bent to pick up the paper on her porch, her face drained of color. She stumbled back inside, immediately calling Dr. Teller. Hours later, FBI agents stormed Teller's clinic with a search warrant in hand, while media vans gathered like vultures outside the Hale estate. "Voss is panicking," Sidney relayed over a secure call. "He's trying to pull the petition." "They're unraveling," Marcus replied. "What about Eva?" "She's holed up at Brooks' house. Hasn't made a move since leaving with the bag. The Bureau wants to bring her in. Potential co-conspirator." Marcus's face darkened. He wanted accountability, but not if it meant seeing his daughter in cuffs. "Tell Banks I'll speak to her myself. Arrange something at the field office tomorrow." Their meeting was nothing like the one Marcus had imagined during his coma. They faced each other across a sterile FBI interview room, the air thick with tension. Eva looked wary, defensive, her eyes darting occasionally to the mirrored glass behind him. "You weren't supposed to wake up," she said at last, her voice edged with something between guilt and fear. "Sorry to disappoint," Marcus replied coolly. Color rose in her cheeks. "You don't understand." "Oh, I do," he said flatly. "While I was hanging on by a thread, you were inventorying my life like I was already dead." "You're wrong," she snapped. "I was trying to save you. Mom and Teller were talking about pulling the plug, calling it dying with dignity. But I saw Teller tampering with your meds when no one else was looking. Marcus studied her, searching for signs of a lie. That doesn't explain taking the safe's contents. I overheard them planning to empty your accounts, she said more quietly. I didn't know who I could trust, so I grabbed what I could and hid it. It's still untouched. I can prove it. Marcus's face gave away nothing. And the part where you joked about selling my watches? Ava dropped her gaze. That was for show. I was trying to stay close, keep them from getting suspicious while I figured things out. After I saw Teller with the IV line, I started recording everything. She pulled a flash drive from her jacket and slid it across the table. It's all on there. I thought about going to the cops, but I knew Mom would twist it. She always does. Marcus picked up the drive, eyes unreadable. Years of working in high-risk security had taught him this above all. The simplest answer is usually the truth. And in this case, the simplest truth was that the people he trusted most had betrayed him. I'll have it reviewed, he said quietly. If that's accurate, the FBI will want your testimony, Marcus said, his tone low and unyielding. Ava's eyes welled with emotion. Dad, I know how bad this must seem, but I swear, everything I did was to protect you. I didn't know any other way. Marcus stood slowly, his expression unreadable. We'll let the facts do the talking. At the safe house, Marcus handed Damien a flash drive. Cross-check this with what we have from surveillance. Let's find out if she's telling the truth. While Damien began analyzing the data, Marcus stayed close, piecing together the situation in his head. Dr. Teller had been formally charged with attempted murder, medical fraud, and tampering with official records. His license had been stripped, and he remained locked up, bail denied. Meanwhile, Lena had retained another high-powered attorney, a clear sign she expected legal trouble of her own. Under Damien's direction, the company was still running, but Marcus's image had taken serious damage. Industry news outlets and blogs were openly speculating about his mental fitness, a smear effort clearly pushed by Voss to discredit Marcus before he could testify. To Marcus's surprise, the drive backed up nearly all of Eva's claims. Hidden recordings captured Teller and Lena discussing ways to manipulate his medication to block his recovery. Eva's voice appeared in the background, asking what seemed like innocent questions, but every line had been carefully crafted, subtly exposing their intent. She was building a case, Damien said as he aligned the audio with their surveillance records. She even secured the contents of the safe right after hearing Lena say she was going to clear it out. Marcus listened in silence, trying to take it all in. The realization that Ava hadn't betrayed him, but had risked everything to protect him, shook the foundation of his resolve. Revenge no longer seemed so black and white. Someone on his list might not belong there. I need to speak to her again, he said at last. But first, we go ahead with Phase 3, Lena and Teller. Phase 3 launched with Sydney filing a sweeping civil suit against them both. The complaint didn't just include the attempted murder. It laid out years of Lena's financial manipulation. The damages alone would destroy them financially, even if they managed to avoid prison. At the same time, Damien distributed carefully selected video evidence to a handful of media outlets. The goal was to ignite public fury, without endangering the criminal trial. Within days, the tide turned. Lena and Teller became media villains, their faces on every major network, nicknamed the Black Widow and Dr. Death. The media firestorm splintered their alliance. Teller's lawyer reached out to prosecutors, offering a deal. His client would testify against Lena in exchange for a reduced sentence. Lena, feeling the heat, pivoted fast, claiming she had been the one manipulated, that Teller had secretly been drugging her too. Marcus observed their downfall with a cold kind of satisfaction. But thoughts of Eva lingered. He rewatched the contents of the drive more than once before requesting a private meeting at Sydney's office. This time, Eva came prepared with additional proof. She laid out financial documents showing a long-standing trail of money from Teller to Lena, transactions dating back 2 years before Marcus's fall. "They were planning this way before the accident," she said. "I found these in Mom's private email after I got suspicious. Teller was desperate, deep in debt from gambling, and Mom, she wanted out of the marriage, but didn't want to lose her lifestyle." Marcus leaned in, his voice tight. "Why didn't you come to me?" Eva's expression darkened. "I did. 3 times I tried to tell you something was off with Mom, but you were always too busy, working, traveling. The last time I brought it up, you said we'd talk after you landed that new tech deal." She paused, voice cracking. "That was the day before your accident." The memory hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Eva trying to speak, and him brushing her off, focused on work. The idea that one honest conversation could have changed the course of everything left him shaken. Before he could respond, Sydney stepped in with breaking news. "The FBI just picked up Lena. They found new evidence at the house, suspicious deaths tied to her past. They're reopening Rick Carter's case. Her first husband died of a heart attack 12 years ago, right before she met you." "This is bigger than just you now," Sydney continued. "If the toxicology report shows the same drugs Teller used on you—" Marcus turned to Eva. She was already looking at him, her expression a mirror of his own disbelief. The possibility that Lena had been orchestrating deadly schemes long before Marcus came into her life sent a chill down his spine. He met Eva's eyes. "I need your help to finish this." Eva nodded without hesitation. "I'm in. Until the end." As Marcus put the final phase of his plan into motion, Raymond Voss showed his true danger. With the evidence against his clients now overwhelming, Voss changed tactics, aiming straight at Marcus's company. Leveraging his network in the financial world, he began spreading quiet rumors that Hale Security was unstable without Marcus's direct oversight. Clients panicked, contracts were canceled, the business teetered on the edge. "We've lost 3 big accounts this week," Damien reported in an emergency strategy meeting. "Nextech's considering pulling out. Stock's down nearly 20%. "Voss knows Lena and Teller are finished," Damien added grimly. "Now he's making sure you've got nothing left to rebuild with." Marcus took it in. "He's hitting what matters to me most, same way I went after them." "We need to make a public response," Sydney urged. "Your silence is only making the rumors worse." A public appearance could reassure investors and reignite their confidence. "No," Marcus replied, his tone unwavering. "That's exactly the trap Voss wants me to walk into, putting me on display before I'm ready." He turned to Eva. "What's your mother ever told you about him?" "Well, aside from hiring him for this mess." Eva hesitated, searching her memory. "She once said he handled Dr. Teller's divorce a few years ago. Said he managed to wipe out the wife's claims, even though the prenup gave her most of it." Marcus's eyes narrowed with intrigue. "Dig deeper into that. This isn't just legal maneuvering. He's got a stake in this." It didn't take Eva long to uncover the missing link. The key was Vanessa Hale, Lena's sister, who had briefly been involved with Raymond Voss before introducing him to Teller during the chaotic split. It went beyond business. There was a personal connection at play. "This changes things," Marcus said, his voice low. "He's not acting like a typical attorney. He's emotionally invested. And he's good at what he does," Damien added grimly. 5 more clients pulled out today. Our stock dropped another 12%. The situation escalated further when Nextech's CEO demanded a face-to-face with Damien, making it clear that Marcus's absence would terminate their alliance, a blow that could decimate Hale Security's finances. With no other path, Marcus adjusted course. "Set the meeting," he instructed, "but not at their headquarters. Neutral ground, somewhere we control." They agreed on a secure, exclusive Boston club, tight security, staffed with ex-military operatives Marcus had trusted before. When Mason Brooks, the silver-haired CEO of Nextech, spotted Marcus entering instead of Damien, his face stiffened in shock. "Thought you were still in rehab," he said, clearly taken aback. "Not every headline gets it right," Marcus replied evenly, lowering himself into the chair. "I hear there are concerns about our arrangement." "Concerns?" Brooks echoed, incredulous. "Your client base is in freefall. You've been hospitalized. Your wife is facing attempted murder charges. Your doctor's collaborating with the feds. Your company's worth is evaporating. Concern doesn't begin to describe it." Marcus held his gaze without flinching. "All true. But it's also true that we've had 0 security breaches. Not a single client has experienced data loss. Our tech division is intact. Operations are running at full capacity." "Leadership and stability still matter, Mr. Hale." "They absolutely do," Marcus said. "That's why I'm sitting across from you, mid-recovery, to prove Hale Security still leads the industry, and to offer something no competitor can." He leaned in slightly. "I'm putting up a personal guarantee, $10 million performance bond against Nextech Security." Brooks blinked. "That's twice the contract's worth." "I know," Marcus said simply, "because I'm that confident, and because I understand that perception drives business just as much as results. We're still solid. The narrative out there is being twisted by people with their own motives." What followed was a 2-hour deep dive into infrastructure, protocols, and risk assessments. Marcus displayed complete command of the system's inner workings. Brooks, gradually reassured by both Marcus's technical knowledge and composure, agreed to stay the course, with the added bond as insurance. It wasn't a full recovery, but it stopped the bleeding, for now. That night, the fragile calm shattered. Reports came in that Dr. Teller had attempted suicide while in custody. The FBI had connected him not just to Marcus's case, but also to 3 other mysterious deaths among his patients. His condition was critical. "This throws everything into chaos," Sydney said during a late-night call. "If he dies, Lena's team will paint him as the puppet master and her as a manipulated victim. Without him testifying, the prosecution's case weakens." "Not completely," Eva interjected. She turned to Marcus. "One of the files I gave Dad, on that flash drive, it's a recording. It's Mom. She's giving Teller explicit instructions. What meds to alter to keep you unconscious." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Get that to the DA immediately. And Damien, move the board meeting up. We're out of time." The emergency board meeting was scheduled for early the next day. As Marcus reviewed his statement, a secure anonymous message popped up on his phone. "You should have stayed in that coma, Hale. Some fates are worse than death." He silently passed the screen to Damien. "Voss." "He's either losing his grip or getting bold," Damien muttered. "We should postpone." Marcus shook his head. "No, that's exactly what he wants. Disorder and fear. We go forward. It ends tonight." Tension coiled thickly in the boardroom as the meeting commenced. 8 senior board members, each a stalwart of the industry and major stakeholder, sat around a gleaming oak table, their expressions heavy with apprehension over the company's uncertain future. Marcus arrived last, accompanied by Damien and Sydney, and catching many off guard, by Eva. Already seated were Raymond Voss and Bernard Whitley, the latter the board's staunchest traditionalist. "This is a closed session," Voss snapped, his tone sharp. "Family members aren't permitted." "Miss Hale isn't here as family," Sydney replied coolly. "She's a crucial witness. What's being discussed today involves potential criminal conduct that jeopardizes this company. Her presence isn't optional, it's required." Before Voss could voice another objection, Marcus stepped forward and took control of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice calm but firm, "I'm aware of the doubts hanging over us. Speculation has been rampant about my health, my wife's legal situation, and the ripple effects on our clients' trust. and Mr. Voss has done more than his share to fan those flames. I represent the concerns of numerous shareholders, Voss countered smoothly. And rightly so, Marcus said with a nod. Let me address each of those concerns directly. He gestured toward the digital display mounted on the far wall. Damien, Exhibit A. The screen lit up with grainy footage from a security camera. It showed Voss entering Marcus's private study, accompanied by Lena and Dr. Teller. The timestamp placed it 3 days before the first anonymous tips had reached the board, warning of internal instability. Next, Exhibit B. The video was replaced by a series of bank records. They tracked wire transfers from an offshore account linked to Voss, payments made to bloggers who had recently posted damaging pieces about Hale security. And now, Exhibit C. Emails appeared. A long thread between Voss and Lena, stretching back 18 months. They revealed a pattern of calculated planning, a campaign to undermine Marcus and force him out of power. Silence gripped the room as Marcus steadily outlined the full extent of Voss's betrayal, which didn't stop at sabotage, but included involvement in the attempt on Marcus's life. Mr. Voss isn't acting in the shareholders' interest, Marcus concluded. He's part of the same conspiracy that tried to eliminate me, and now seeks to destroy this company from the inside. The issue isn't whether I can continue to lead. It's whether this board will allow criminals to finish what they started. Voss shot to his feet. This is preposterous. You can't. I can, Marcus interrupted, unwavering. And I already have. The FBI has been given full documentation, including sworn testimony from my daughter detailing what she witnessed. There are agents here now outside this room, waiting to speak with you, Mr. Voss. Almost on cue, the door opened. 2 federal agents entered, their dark suits unmistakable. Voss paled, his composure collapsing as the reality of his situation settled in. This meeting is concluded, Marcus said evenly. We'll reconvene tomorrow to discuss the company's next steps, without those who tried to bring it down. As Voss was led out, a few board members approached Marcus, their faces a mix of astonishment and tentative admiration. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but Marcus knew the larger battle was far from over. The firm's reputation had taken a hit. Rebuilding trust, internally and externally, would demand time and surgical precision. That evening, in a secure location, Marcus, Damien, Sydney, and Eva gathered around a monitor as the news broke. Dr. Warren Teller had died by suicide. At the same time, Lena's legal team had entered negotiations for a plea deal, spurred by the mountain of evidence linking her to Voss. 1 down, Damien said grimly. 2 left, Marcus corrected. Voss and Lena still owe more than they've paid. Eva, who had been quiet all evening, finally spoke up. And once they have? What happens after that, Dad? Marcus met her gaze. Her question came from a place he couldn't yet reach. She was envisioning life beyond the fight, a future after justice was served. But for Marcus, the mission wasn't finished. We complete this first, he said. Then we see what remains. The grand jury's indictment against Lena was sweeping. It included charges of attempted murder, insurance fraud, securities manipulation, and, most chilling of all, potential involvement in the suspicious death of her first husband, Rick Carter. Toxicology from the exhumed body had revealed traces of the same bradycardic agent Dr. Teller had used on Marcus. Voss, meanwhile, faced an equally damning array of charges: conspiracy, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, and orchestrating market manipulation tied to Hale Securities' declining stock value. Neither he nor Lena was granted bail. Their joint trial was scheduled for 6 months later. For most, such sweeping legal consequences might have marked the end. But Marcus Hale wasn't like most. They're still negotiating, he told Sydney during a weekly strategy meeting. Lena is trying to get her sister Vanessa to testify about childhood trauma, playing for sympathy. Voss believes his contacts in the legal world will cushion the blow. Sidney studied him, concern deepening. Marcus's physical recovery over the past 3 months had been extraordinary, but something beneath the surface had shifted, something elemental. He hadn't just returned to his former strength. He had pushed his body beyond its limits, submitting to punishing daily routines without mercy. But it wasn't the physical change that defined his rebirth. The deeper shift was internal. The man who had once stepped into Coma with resolve, decency, and purpose no longer existed. In his place stood someone sharpened by betrayal, stripped of compassion, and immune to pity, especially for those who had turned against him. "The system's working exactly the way it's supposed to," Sidney reminded him. "They'll spend years behind bars." They're going to lose everything in civil court, too," she added. "Isn't that enough to count as justice?" Marcus's expression remained unreadable. "You know what Lena said while I was unconscious? That they'd sell everything I owned and split the proceeds." He looked away for a moment, his voice cooling further. "They weren't just waiting for me to die. They were planning to erase every trace of me and profit from the ruins. So no. Prison time and asset forfeiture aren't even close to justice." "What is it you want, then?" Sidney asked quietly. "I want them to experience what I did, paralyzed, powerless to intervene, as everything they treasure is stripped from them." He slid a folder across the table. "Phase 4, the final step." Sidney flipped it open and read quickly, unease growing with every document. "Marcus, this isn't about the courts anymore. You could jeopardize the entire criminal case." "It's not illegal," Marcus said evenly. "Just calculated pressure. Nothing else." Phase 4 began the very next morning. Vanessa Hale received an unmarked package. Inside were confidential documents revealing offshore bank accounts she had helped Lena establish, accounts that had gone unnoticed by authorities. Attached was a simple note: "Loyalty or freedom, you choose." Simultaneously, 3 of Raymond Voss's former clients were sent anonymous files exposing damning ethical violations, proof that he had deliberately stalled their cases to rack up legal fees. "They're being cut off," Marcus explained to Damien and Ava as they went over the early outcomes. "Every ally, every safety net, they're all being dismantled." Ava looked troubled. "Is this really necessary, Dad?" "They're already facing long prison sentences." Marcus's response was firm. "And if I hadn't survived? Your mother and Teller would have finished the job, walked away with everything, and left no trace. Voss would have covered it up like he's done before. This isn't revenge, it's equilibrium." Within a few days, Vanessa reached out to the prosecution, offering to testify against Lena in exchange for immunity related to the financial fraud. 2 of Voss's former clients formally filed ethics complaints, initiating the process that could strip him of his license, regardless of the trial's outcome. Marcus's campaign of attrition rolled forward with relentless precision, dismantling every possible support structure. Exclusive clubs revoked memberships after receiving anonymous dossiers detailing the group's misconduct. Colleagues and acquaintances distanced themselves as the truth came to light. Even Lena's own defense attorney walked away after discovering she had lied to him about crucial aspects of the case. "They've run out of places to hide," Damien observed 3 weeks into the operation. "Lena's tried to hire 3 new lawyers. Each one dropped her after seeing the files we sent. Voss is representing himself now. No firm will touch him." Marcus gave a measured nod. "It's time. Sidney, arrange a prison visit with Lena. No attorneys present." Sidney hesitated. "I'd strongly advise against that. If you say the wrong thing, she could use it against you." Marcus's voice was flat. "I don't plan on giving her anything useful. Quite the opposite." The prison visitation room was sterile and cold. Steel chairs bolted to the floor, surveillance cameras in every corner. Lena entered wearing the standard orange uniform, her once flawless image now faded, her face drawn with fatigue. When her eyes found Marcus, her expression shifted: shock, fear, then a carefully constructed look of remorse. "Marcus," she began, her voice shaky, "I don't know what you've heard, but tell her. He manipulated everything. He kept me medicated. I wasn't myself. I never meant to hurt you." Marcus remained silent, watching her lie settle uncomfortably between them like smoke in the still air. "I know how it looks," she continued, desperation creeping in. "But you have to believe me. 15 years together? That must mean something." 14 years, 8 months, Marcus corrected coolly. "That's how long we were married before you and Teller started plotting my death. I heard every word you said in that hospital room. Every joke about how convenient it would be if I didn't wake up. Every plan to sell off my life." Her mask cracked. Eva wasn't part of it. She had no idea. "That's not true," he replied. "She knew everything. But she wasn't working with you. She wasn't on your side." "She wasn't," Marcus said. "She was collecting evidence against you. She has more integrity in her than you ever had." Lena's voice faltered. "Then why are you here? What do you want from me?" Marcus leaned forward. "I want you to understand that every contingency you had, every hidden account, every secret ally, every escape plan, is gone. Vanessa flipped. The offshore money is exposed, and Raymond Carter's body proved this isn't your first attempt at erasing someone. There would be no negotiations, no shortened sentence, no transfer to a comfortable facility with open yards and lax oversight. What awaited was a life sentence. No parole, no reprieve. And Marcus intended to see to it that every second was spent in the harshest conditions possible." Lena's expression twisted into pure loathing. "You think you've won?" she snarled. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." "I know you've still got a few tricks buried," Marcus replied calmly. "Like that safety deposit box at First Maritime, the one containing dirt on Judge Hamilton, already handed over to the Bureau, or were you talking about the offshore account in the Caymans, under your mother's maiden name?" He allowed himself a thin, chilling smile. "Frozen as of last Thursday. You're out of plays, Lena. No escape, no redemption arc." "Then why don't you just finish it?" she snapped. "That's what you're really after, isn't it?" "Death would be merciful," Marcus said, his voice cold. "I'm after something else. Justice." He stood. "You tried to erase me when I was defenseless. Now you'll watch as I dismantle every part of your life, your freedom, your reputation, your comfort, your future. And unlike what you did to me, you'll be awake for every moment of it." As he moved to summon the guard, Lena's composure shattered. Rage and dread surged to the surface. "You don't have the right," she barked. "I'll fight this. I always do." Marcus looked back one last time, his gaze hard as granite. "The surveillance footage is already with my attorney. This was over before you even realized it had begun." His encounter with Raymond Voss followed a parallel path. The seasoned lawyer managed to keep his mask of calm longer than Lena, but it too cracked when Marcus laid out the evidence, irrefutable proof of jury tampering, enough to stack decades onto his sentence. "You're destroying everything I've built," Voss seethed. "My legacy, my reputation, my life's work." Marcus didn't flinch. "Exactly what you tried to do to me. The difference? You actually deserve it." Though tried separately, both cases ended in devastation for the accused. Lena's trial ran for 11 days, filled with testimony from forensic analysts, financial auditors, and the most damaging witness of all, her own sister, Vanessa. The jury deliberated for less than half a day before delivering a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder in the death of Rick Carter. The judge imposed life without parole. Voss received a 28-year sentence for conspiracy, with disbarment proceedings already in motion. His last act, a bitter tirade aimed at Marcus instead of acknowledging his guilt, only served to alienate the jury further. Marcus sat through it all, silently observing from the gallery, his expression unchanged as the lies and treachery were laid bare. Ava was beside him during sentencing, a quiet but powerful presence, her support unwavering, a clear declaration of where her allegiance lay. Over the ensuing months, Hale's security began to recover. With Marcus back at the helm, confidence among clients slowly returned. The Nextech deal, once on the brink, evolved into a landmark success, garnering praise and restoring the firm's standing. 6 months after the final rulings, Marcus gathered a small group in his newly refurbished home office, a space scrubbed clean of Dr. Teller's sinister influence. Damien and Eva sat across from him as he shared the update. "It's done," Marcus said. "Lena's appeal was denied. Voss has been officially disbarred. There's nothing left hanging." Damien gave a small nod, satisfied. Eva, however, didn't look convinced. "So, what now, Dad? You've spent a year dismantling them. Is that really the end?" "The revenge part is over," Marcus said with a nod. "Now comes the rebuilding." He gestured to a stack of documents on his desk. "I've been reorganizing the company. Damien, I want you as Chief Operating Officer, with equity. You held everything together when I couldn't." Damien blinked, visibly taken aback. "I just did what needed to be done." "And that's exactly why you've earned the role." Marcus then turned to his daughter. "As for you, if you're up for it, I've started a cybersecurity training division. I want you to head it." Eva's eyes widened. "I'm still a student. Part-time, flexible hours. What you'll gain here is more valuable than anything you'll learn in a classroom," he said, his tone softening. "You didn't just uncover evidence. You had faith in me when no one else did." "I never stopped believing," Eva whispered. "Even when Mom and Dr. Teller made everyone think you were gone, I knew you were still out there, still fighting." Marcus paused, then reached for her hand, a rare gesture that left both of his children momentarily stunned. "I've been so caught up in punishing those who betrayed me, I nearly forgot to thank the one person who never did. I'm sorry." Their quiet moment was broken by Sydney's entrance, carrying the final piece of the puzzle. "The medical board concluded their review," she reported. "Every one of Teller's former patients is being reevaluated. 2 more deaths have already been flagged as suspicious." Marcus nodded, letting it all settle in. Justice had stretched further than he could have hoped. He hadn't just reclaimed what was stolen from him. He had brought the truth into the open and left no shadow untouched. You may have spared others from enduring what you did. That evening, in the stillness of his study, Marcus sat alone and played back the surveillance footage one last time, not of his house, but of the prison where Lena was being held. A special feed had been arranged, showing her isolated figure inside a stark, windowless cell. It measured 8 by 10 feet, furnished only with a metal cot and a bare toilet. She sat rigidly on the bed, her gaze fixed blankly on the wall, the fire in her eyes long extinguished. Marcus turned off the monitor, not with triumph, but with a hollow, unmoored feeling. The fury that had once fueled him, the drive for retribution that had pushed him through agonizing rehab and dragged him through courtroom battles, had finally dimmed. In its place was an unfamiliar emptiness. A knock broke the silence. Ava stepped in without waiting, scotch bottle in hand, along with 2 glasses. "Figured you could use this," she said, already pouring. For the first time in over a year, there was no mission left to pursue. Marcus accepted the drink, nodding slowly. "Revenge gives you purpose. Once it's over, all that's left is the void." "Then fill it with something better," Ava said, settling across from him. "Build instead of destroy." He gave her a sideways glance. "When did you get so wise?" She offered a soft smile. "Watching someone you love almost die will do that." She raised her glass. "To second chances, and doing something good with them." Their glasses met with a quiet clink. Marcus sat back, her words echoing in his mind. The inferno that had driven him had cooled to embers. What came next was uncertain, but something would have to grow from those ashes. Exactly 1 year to the day after Marcus Hale awoke from his coma, Hale Security hosted a gala to introduce its newest initiative, a foundation called the Awakening Initiative, dedicated to advocacy for victims of systemic medical malpractice and hidden corruption. The name carried weight for those familiar with the story behind it. Not only had the company survived its brush with ruin, it had risen stronger than ever. Under the joint guidance of Marcus and Damien, the previously modest Nextech contract had evolved into a full-scale strategic alliance. Ironically, the scandal that had nearly destroyed Hale Security had become its most powerful proof of integrity. When Marcus took the stage to deliver his first public address since the trials ended, he didn't bother with small talk. "A year ago," he began, "I was declared clinically dead. No brain function, no chance of coming back." He paused, letting the words sink in. "While I lay unconscious, people I trusted were already carving up my legacy, securing their own futures at my expense, and ensuring I'd never wake up." His voice hardened. "Now those same people are serving life sentences, and I stand before you, alive and whole." He let a moment of silence settle over the room. "You may expect me to speak of forgiveness, of finding peace in letting go, but that wouldn't be honest. I didn't forgive them. I made sure they faced justice. Because vengeance may offer closure, but it doesn't offer direction. It looks backward, not forward." He gestured toward Eva as she joined him on stage. "That's why we created the Awakening Initiative. It's not about retribution. It's about what comes after. We're partnering with regulatory agencies, law enforcement, and advocacy groups to dismantle the same kind of networks that nearly cost me my life. We'll protect those at risk and ensure that no one like Dr. Warren Teller ever abuses their position of trust again." The room erupted in applause, especially from several former patients of Dr. Teller, invited after new investigations uncovered disturbing patterns in their care. Later that night, as the event tapered off, Sydney Blackwell approached Marcus. There was a rare uncertainty in her usually composed voice. "I wanted to say congratulations," she began. "The foundation is remarkable, especially given everything you've been through." Marcus nodded. "Justice first, then forward motion. You need both." Sydney hesitated before continuing. "Something crossed my desk today. Lena is asking to meet with you." Marcus's demeanor changed. "What for?" "She claims she has information on other medical conspiracies. Says Teller gave it to her before he died. She's willing to share, but only if you help move her to a medium security facility." His jaw clenched. "Still playing angles," he said coldly. "Tell her no. If what she has is real, she can give it to the authorities, without conditions." Sydney studied him. The Marcus I knew before might have heard her out, might have seen a chance to protect more people. "The Marcus you knew nearly died trusting someone like her," he replied. "The Awakening Initiative is about protecting victims, not giving favors to manipulators. She stays where she is." Later that night, long after the last guests had left, Marcus returned to his office. Ava was already there, reviewing the Foundation's first case files. "We've got 18 solid leads," she said. "These are just the ones with hard evidence flagged already." Marcus loosened his tie and sank into the chair across from her. "Then we look into every one of them. No assumptions. No shortcuts." Eva hesitated, then added quietly, "Sydney told me about Mom's request." "I think you were right to say no," Eva said softly. Marcus didn't reply, but the quiet between them left space for her to continue. "It's just—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I worry this whole ordeal, it's changed you too deeply. You got justice. You rebuilt everything. You turned the ruins into something with purpose. But sometimes, I feel like the same fire that kept you going also scorched something essential inside you. Marcus absorbed her words with a stillness that felt practiced, neither defensive nor caught off guard. Maybe it did, he said finally. When trust breaks, it doesn't grow back the same. And once you lose your innocence, he added, you can't reclaim it. That doesn't mean you have to shut the world out, Eva said. Being careful isn't the same thing as being alone. Before Marcus could say anything, Damien entered, his usually calm demeanor edged with urgency. You need to see this, he said, placing a tablet on the table between them. The screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage from a prison cell, Lena's. She was locked in conversation with a visitor. That's Voss's old legal aid, Marcus said, narrowing his eyes. What's he doing in her cell? Keep watching, Damien instructed, tapping the tablet. The video showed the man sliding a small object into Lena's hands. She quickly concealed it in her bedding before the conversation continued, like nothing had happened. When was this recorded? Marcus asked, his tone sharp. Yesterday, Damien answered. I kept a silent tap on their surveillance feed, just had a feeling this wasn't over. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes locked on the screen. They're still coordinating, still pulling strings. But for what purpose? Eva asked, brows furrowed. They're both locked up. Their influence is gone. What could they still be scheming? That's what we need to find out, Marcus said, his expression hardening, the haze in his gaze giving way to clarity. Damien, get in touch with our corrections contact. We need to know exactly what was inside that package. Several hours later, the answer arrived. Inside the parcel were access credentials to an offshore bank account they'd missed during the previous operation. But more alarming, far more, was a dossier of detailed information about Marcus, Damien, Sydney, and Eva, schedules, home addresses, even layers of their private security. They're not done, Marcus said, voice like iron. Prison didn't end their campaign. It just changed its shape. They can't act directly anymore, Damien noted, but they've got the means to hire someone who can. Marcus didn't flinch. What settled over him wasn't panic. It was razor-sharp certainty. He had avenged the betrayal, but the threat itself had never truly died. Lena and Voss weren't dangerous because of what they had done. They were dangerous because they still had the intent, and now, new tools. This ends now, Marcus said, his voice a low command. Freeze that account. Hunt down every outside contact they've made, and make sure they understand if they try anything else, the consequences will be far worse than prison. Eva stiffened. Dad, what are you saying? Nothing illegal, Marcus said calmly, but they need to know. Incarceration doesn't shield them from accountability. I spent 2 months trapped in silence listening to them scheme my downfall. I won't spend the rest of my life bracing for the next strike. The next day, Lena and Voss received unexpected visitors, not from Marcus's camp, but from ghosts they thought buried, former victims, forgotten witnesses, lives they had wrecked and erased from memory. Each person delivered a simple, unified warning. Any further action against the Hale or their allies would bring new evidence to light, evidence strong enough to ensure their sentences stretched indefinitely, crushing even the faintest dream of release. At the same time, the hidden funds were locked down. The legal aid who had smuggled the package was arrested on federal charges. Any accomplices named in their plans were either turned or paid off to vanish entirely. 3 days later, a message arrived through the official prison channels. Lena had withdrawn her request to speak with Marcus. Attached was a signed statement forfeiting her right to appeal. Checkmate, Damien said, scrolling through the message. She finally gets it. It's finished. Marcus gave a slow nod, but his face remained unreadable. For now. People like Lena and Voss don't change, he added. They just adapt. Then we stay vigilant, Eva said. but we also move forward. Later that week, Marcus stood alone on the balcony of his home, watching the sun set over Portsmouth Harbor. The company had not only survived, it was thriving. The foundation was up and running. His enemies were neutralized. By all accounts, the mission was complete. Still, Eva's words echoed in his mind like a whisper behind every thought. The man who'd gone into that coma, trusting, exhausted, but ultimately kind, no longer existed. In his place stood someone sharper, more controlled, less inclined to believe in safety, someone who understood that even in victory, some things never return. Was his transformation truly born out of necessity, or had he simply allowed betrayal to carve a new version of himself from the wreckage? His phone buzzed, an encrypted ping from the Awakening Initiative, another alert, another troubling case, another household possibly conspiring against someone too incapacitated to defend their own interests. Marcus didn't hesitate. He opened the dossier, eyes locked onto the screen with unwavering resolve. The man he used to be, idealistic, perhaps even naive, had been consumed in the flames of treachery, smelted down and reforged into something colder, harder. But this new self didn't exist for revenge alone. No, he now served a greater cause, one that demanded steel in place of sentiment. He had already made peace with the price that demanded. As dusk deepened over the harbor, the sky folding itself into layers of shadow, a single thought stirred in his mind. Not all comas end with awakening. Some end with rebirth. Our story comes to an end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this story, please check out other videos on this channel. See you soon, my dear friend.